Hey, everybody, and welcome. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into staying curious while you're coding.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like that feeling of, I'm going to figure this problem out.
Right.
Even when you hit a wall and it feels like you're banging your head against it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to be looking at this awesome blog post from Algo Academy.
Okay.
And as you guys probably know,
Yeah.
Algo Academy uses AI to help people learn to code.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting about this post to you?
Well, what I find really interesting is that they're not just saying curiosity is a nice to have.
Mm-hmm.
They're positioning it as like the core engine
Yeah.
of becoming a better programmer.
Yeah.
It's that constant desire to learn
Mm-hmm.
and solve problems that fuels innovation,
Yeah.
not just in tech, but in any field, really. Like anything you do.
And you know what I thought was really neat? Is that they don't just say be curious,
Right.
they actually give you tactics,
Yeah.
like how to put this into practice.
Yes.
And one that really jumped out at me was this idea of reframing failure as a learning opportunity.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a really important point, and they dig a little deeper than just saying don't be afraid to fail.
Uh-huh.
It suggests asking yourself targeted questions when your code doesn't work. Like, what specific concept am I misunderstanding?
Yeah.
Or is there a different approach I could try based on what I just learned?
Yeah.
It turns frustration into a detective game almost.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Like Sherlock Holmes debugging.
Yeah, exactly.
It's less about beating yourself up when you hit an error message
Right.
and more about getting curious about why this bug is happening.
Yeah, why is this happening? What can I learn from this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the post also talks about this idea, and this might seem obvious to some people,
Yeah.
the power of breaking down complex problems into smaller steps.
Right.
Do you think coders actually do this?
You'd be surprised. It's really easy to get overwhelmed by the big picture.
Right.
Especially in coding. Uh-huh.
Where one small error can cascade into this huge mess.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They highlight that even experienced coders benefit from reminding themselves to break things down.
Okay.
They use this analogy of a dynamic programming problem,
Mm-hmm.
which can be really tough.
Yeah.
They suggest instead of getting lost in the complexity,
Yeah.
ask yourself, okay, what is the absolute smallest chunk of this that I can solve right now?
Right.
And build from there.
That's great advice. And that applies to so many things in life.
Totally.
It's like instead of trying to climb a mountain in one giant leap,
Yeah.
you figure out where the handholds are.
Exactly. And that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
This approach has implications beyond just the immediate coding problem.
Mm-hmm.
Getting comfortable breaking down complex tasks is a skill that translates to project management,
Yeah,
strategic planning,
for sure.
really any field where you've got multiple moving parts.
So we've got reframing failure,
Yeah.
breaking things down.
What other curiosity-boosting tactics does the post recommend?
Well, this one might surprise some people.
Okay.
Actively looking for multiple solutions to the same problem.
Okay.
It's easy to just stop once your code works.
Uh-huh.
But the post encourages folks to think,
Yeah.
okay, that's one way to do it.
Mm.
But is there a better way?
Okay.
Maybe a more efficient algorithm
Right.
or a solution that's easier for others to read and understand.
So if it's working, why mess with it?
I think that's where the real growth happens.
Okay.
It's the difference between being a decent coder and someone who's constantly pushing their own boundaries.
Yeah.
They even use this analogy. Imagine a chef who only knows one way to cook a potato.
Uh-huh.
They're limited.
Uh-huh.
But if they explore different techniques,
Yeah.
they have more options,
Right.
depending on what they're trying to create.
Yeah. I guess you wouldn't want to eat the same potato every day.
No, you wouldn't.
So, okay, maybe I won't judge my friend who's obsessed with perfecting their scrambled egg recipe anymore. But seriously, I get how that applies to coding.
Totally.
Like, the more solutions you explore, the deeper your understanding of the underlying concepts becomes.
Right. And they point out something really key here.
Okay.
When you're evaluating different solutions, you start to think about trade-offs.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe one solution is faster, but it uses more memory.
Uh-huh.
Another one might be easier to maintain,
Right.
but less elegant.
Yeah.
These are considerations that even non-coders face in their work all the time.
So it's almost like you're training your brain to be more flexible and adaptable.
Yeah, exactly.
And the post also talks about engaging with the coding community.
Yes.
Now, that might seem kind of obvious.
Right.
But how does that tie into staying curious?
It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking it's just me and my computer against this problem.
Mm-hmm.
But they highlight that even though coding can be a solitary activity,
Yeah.
there's this huge community of people who are passionate about the same things.
Yeah.
They suggest online forums, meetups, even contributing to open source projects.
Right.
It's not just about getting help when you're stuck. It's about being exposed to different ways of thinking, different approaches to problem solving that you might never have considered on your own.
That's like having a bunch of coding buddies to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
Even if you are working independently most of the time.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got embracing failure.
Yes.
Breaking things down, searching for multiple solutions, and plugging into the community.
Yes.
What other gems does the post have for us?
Well, one thing they emphasize is the power of setting personal coding challenges that are actually relevant to you.
Okay.
It's easy to get caught up in those abstract exercises.
Yeah.
But they ask, what problems do you encounter in your own life that you could solve with code?
Right.
Maybe it's automating a tedious task, building a tool to analyze data you're interested in, or even just creating a simple game.
So instead of just going through the motions of some tutorial, you're actually applying your skills to something you care about.
Exactly. And when you're working on a project that has personal meaning, it's easier to stay engaged and motivated.
Yeah.
Even when things get tough.
It makes sense because there's that intrinsic motivation of, hey, I'm not just learning this for some arbitrary reason.
Right.
I'm actually creating something.
Exactly.
And speaking of motivation, the post talks about something we all probably need to do more of. Celebrating small victories.
Yes. It's so easy to focus on what you haven't accomplished yet.
Yeah.
Especially in a field like coding where there's always something new to learn.
Yeah.
But the post encourages us to take a moment to acknowledge those small wins. Even if it's just figuring out a tricky bug.
Yeah.
Or finally understanding a concept that's been confusing you.
It's like giving yourself permission to be proud of the progress you're making.
Totally.
Instead of just constantly looking at the huge mountain ahead of you.
Yes.
You appreciate the steps you're taking along the way.
Exactly.
And maybe that helps you stay curious about what's around the next bend.
Right. And they also mention the power of interactive learning tools.
Okay.
Specifically, platforms like Algocademy that use AI to tailor the experience.
All right, so AI in coding education.
Yeah.
That's definitely piqued my curiosity.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we dive into that, let's take a quick break and we'll unpack how these AI-powered tools are actually helping people stay curious while they learn to code. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about AI in coding education.
Yeah.
I got to admit, I'm picturing some futuristic robot tutor, but I'm guessing it's a bit more nuanced than that.
Definitely more nuanced. The Algocademy post talks about how these AI-powered platforms can actually help with something we touched on earlier. Finding that sweet spot of challenge, you know? Not too hard that you get discouraged.
Right.
But not so easy that you get bored.
Yeah, that Goldilocks zone
of
learning. But how can AI actually figure that out for each individual person?
Well, imagine this. You're working on a coding problem.
Okay.
And the platform's AI is tracking your progress in real time. It's not just seeing if you got the right answer. It's analyzing your approach, the types of errors you're making, even how long you're spending on different parts.
So it's almost like having a super observant coding coach.
Yeah.
Looking over your shoulder, but without the judgment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And based on all that data, the AI can start to personalize your learning path.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it notices you're breezing through certain types of problems, so it bumps up the difficulty a bit.
Okay.
Or maybe it sees you're struggling with a particular concept, so it suggests some additional resources or practice exercises.
That makes a lot of sense. Instead of just following a one-size-fits-all curriculum, you're getting a learning experience that's actually adapting to your needs as you go.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see why the post is so enthusiastic about this.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just adjusting the difficulty.
Okay.
The post mentions how some platforms use AI to offer intelligent hints and explanations.
Okay.
When you get stuck.
Yeah.
So instead of just throwing the solution at you, it might guide you towards the answer by asking leading questions or highlighting specific parts of your code that need attention.
It's like having a helpful nudge in the right direction without giving away the whole game.
Exactly.
I bet that's way more effective for learning than just seeing the answer outright.
Absolutely. It keeps that element of curiosity and problem solving active.
Yeah.
And there's this other aspect the post touches on that's pretty cool.
Okay.
AI-powered code analysis tools.
Okay, so it's not just after you finish the whole thing.
Yeah.
You're getting feedback in real time as you're writing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about catching syntax errors.
Okay.
Some of these tools can analyze your code for things like efficiency, readability, even security vulnerabilities.
So it's not just about getting the code to work.
Right.
It's about learning to write good code.
Exactly.
Code that's well-structured and follows best practices.
Yeah, and the post argues that this kind of instant feedback loop is actually a huge motivator for a lot of learners.
Okay.
It's incredibly satisfying to see your code improve in real time.
Yeah.
And it encourages you to experiment and try new things.
It's like having a coding mentor built into your text editor.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got AI adjusting difficulty,
Right.
offering hints,
Yes.
giving you instant feedback on your code.
Yeah.
Are there any other ways that AI is shaping the coding landscape that the post mentions?
Well, there's one more big one,
Okay.
and it's something we touched on briefly earlier, algorithmic thinking.
Right.
The post emphasizes that this isn't just a fancy buzzword. It's a fundamental skill for any coder, especially those prepping for technical interviews at those big tech companies.
Now, I've heard that term thrown around.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it always sounded a bit intimidating.
Right.
Like, is it something you're just born with?
Yeah.
Or can anyone learn to think algorithmically?
Great question. And I think the post does a good job of demystifying this concept.
Okay.
It emphasizes that algorithmic thinking is at its core about problem solving.
Okay.
It's about breaking down complex tasks into smaller, more manageable steps, identifying patterns, and optimizing for efficiency.
So it's not about memorizing a bunch of algorithms.
Right.
It's about developing a certain way of approaching problems.
Exactly. And the post makes this interesting connection to everyday life.
Okay.
Think about something like planning a trip. You've got your starting point, your destination, and a bunch of constraints like time, budget, places you want to visit, figuring out the best route.
Yeah.
That's algorithmic thinking in action.
Okay. I'm starting to get it. It's about finding the most logical and efficient way to achieve a desired outcome.
Right.
Whether you're writing code or planning a vacation.
Right. And the beauty of it is that these skills are transferable.
Okay.
The post suggests that practicing algorithmic thinking in one area of your life can actually make you a better problem solver in all areas.
That's pretty cool. So how does the post suggest we actually get better at this algorithmic thinking thing?
Well, there are a few practical tips they offer.
Okay.
One is to study classic algorithms and data structures.
All right. So even if you're not aiming to be a professional coder,
right,
there's value in understanding how these fundamental building blocks work.
Absolutely. And another tip they suggest is to analyze the time and space complexity of your solutions.
Okay.
Now, this is getting a bit more into the weeds of coding.
Yeah.
But the basic idea is to think about how much time and memory your code takes to run.
So it's not just about finding a solution that works.
Right.
It's about finding the most efficient solution possible.
Exactly. And the post makes a great point here. Even if you're not a coder, this idea of thinking about efficiency is relevant to so many aspects of life. How are you managing your time?
Yeah.
Are you using the most effective tools and systems?
Right.
Are you minimizing wasted effort?
Wow. I'm starting to see algorithmic thinking everywhere now. The post also talks about practicing explaining your thought process out loud.
Yes.
Why is that so important?
That's a great point. The post argues that being able to articulate your problem-solving approach clearly is a crucial skill not just for coding, but for any field where you're collaborating with others.
Right.
It helps you get your ideas across, identify potential flaws in your logic, and even come up with new solutions.
So even if you're coding genius,
right,
if you can't explain what you're doing, it's not going to be very helpful to anyone.
Exactly. And the post suggests that a great way to practice this is to simply talk through your coding problems out loud.
Okay.
Even if you're working alone, it forces you to structure your thoughts and articulate your reasoning in a way that makes sense to others.
This whole concept of algorithmic thinking is really fascinating.
It is.
We've gone beyond just coding tips and tapped into this deeper level of problem solving that's applicable to pretty much any challenge we face in life.
I completely agree. And, the post makes this really interesting point about finding the right balance between challenge and achievement.
Okay.
It talks about this concept called the zone of proximal development, which is essentially that sweet spot where you're pushing yourself just enough to stay engaged and learn, but not so much that you get overwhelmed and give up.
So it's not about blindly tackling the hardest coding problems you can find.
Right.
It's about finding that perfect level of challenge that keeps you motivated and learning.
Exactly. And the post suggests a few ways to find that sweet spot.
Okay.
One is to start with problems that you can solve relatively easily, and then gradually increase the difficulty as you gain confidence.
So it's like building up your coding muscles gradually.
Right. You wouldn't start training for a marathon by trying to run 26 miles on day one.
Right.
You'd build up your endurance slowly over time.
Right.
And the same applies to coding.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other tips for finding that coding sweet spot?
The post also suggests setting time limits for yourself to add an extra challenge.
Yeah.
Or revisiting problems you've solved before and trying to optimize your solutions.
Okay.
This can be a great way to reinforce your understanding and see how much you've progressed.
I love that idea of revisiting old problems.
Yeah.
It's like a chance to flex your coding muscles and see how much stronger you've become.
It is. And it's a great way to keep that curiosity alive
Yeah.
because you're constantly looking for ways to improve and refine your skills.
We've covered so much ground today. As we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what would you say is the biggest takeaway from this Algo Academy post?
I think the core message is that maintaining curiosity isn't just about overcoming immediate obstacles. It's about cultivating a mindset that will serve you throughout your entire coding journey.
Yeah.
It's about approaching each challenge as an opportunity to learn and grow, even when it feels frustrating.
It's not just about the code.
Right.
It's about the coder.
Exactly.
Developing that curious, problem-solving mindset that will take you far no matter what challenges you face.
Exactly. And, the post ends with this beautiful sentiment.
Oh, yeah.
As you prepare for technical interviews or work on personal projects, let your curiosity be your guide. Embrace the challenges.
Yeah.
Celebrate the victories. And always keep asking, what can I learn from this?
I love that. It's such a simple yet powerful reminder that curiosity is the key to unlocking our full potential.
Yeah.
Not just in coding, but in every aspect of our lives.
It's about approaching life with a sense of wonder and a thirst for knowledge.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities.
Speaking of possibilities, I'm curious to hear what parting thought you have for our listeners today.
Okay.
What's that one question or idea you want to leave them with to keep that spark of curiosity burning bright?
I think it would be this. Think of a challenge you're facing right now, whether it's work-related, personal, or just something you've been putting off.
Yeah.
How could you approach that challenge with more curiosity, even if it seems daunting or intimidating?
Yeah.
What questions could you ask? What different perspectives could you consider?
Right.
What small steps could you take today to start moving forward? Remember, even the most complex problems can be broken down into smaller, more manageable pieces.
Yeah.
And with a curious mindset, you can turn any obstacle into an opportunity for growth.
That's a fantastic question to ponder. It really challenges us to look at our challenges through a new lens.
Right.
A lens of curiosity and possibility.
Exactly.
And who knows what amazing discoveries we might make along the way.
Yeah.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive.
It has.
And I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, if you're interested in exploring interactive coding platforms, that can help you keep your curiosity burning bright.
Yeah.
Be sure to check out Algo Academy or other similar platforms.
Excellent advice.
Yeah.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of coding and curiosity.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Until next time, stay curious.
Stay curious.
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
And never stop learning.
Never stop learning.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking all about how to stay curious while coding and using this awesome Algo Academy blog post as our guide.
It's a really good one.
Yeah. And one thing that's really stuck with me is this idea of algorithmic thinking.
Oh, yeah.
And how the post really wants to emphasize that it's not just for coders.
Yeah. They even compare it to something as simple as planning a road trip.
I know. They say figuring out the best route, considering traffic and distance.
Yeah. All the factors.
And even where you want to stop along the way.
Like where you want to eat.
Yeah. Is really similar to how a computer algorithm works.
It is. You have to think about all those things.
And what I thought was really cool is they say that studying classic algorithms and data structures can actually make you better at this kind of everyday problem solving.
It's true.
So it's not about memorizing specific algorithms.
Yeah.
It's about kind of picking up this mental framework.
Yeah, like a way of thinking.
For how to break down complex tasks into those smaller, more manageable steps.
Exactly.
And one of the key elements is this idea of analyzing the efficiency of your solutions.
Oh, for sure.
Now, in coding, this often means talking about time and space complexity.
Right, which can get kind of technical.
Yeah, and basically what that means is
Yeah.
how much time and memory your code takes to run.
Like how many resources it's using.
Yeah, so it's not just about getting it to work.
Right.
It's about finding the most elegant solution.
Yeah, the one that uses the fewest resources possible.
The one that's optimized.
Right.
So how does that apply to someone who's not writing code?
Well, think about how often we do things in a roundabout way, just out of habit.
Yeah.
Maybe it's how we organize our inbox or the steps we take to complete a certain task at work. If we apply this concept of algorithmic thinking, we might start asking ourselves, is this really the most efficient way to do this?
Right.
Could I achieve the same outcome with fewer steps or less effort?
It's like we're optimizing our lives for better performance.
Exactly, like streamlining your processes.
And speaking of performance, the blog post also talks about explaining your thought process out loud.
Oh, that's a good one.
Which I guess is really important for coders working in teams.
Yeah, you have to be able to communicate with your teammates.
But even beyond teamwork,
Right.
being able to clearly articulate your problem-solving approach, that benefits everyone.
Oh, for sure.
And they suggest that even just talking through your process to yourself can help you find flaws in your logic.
Yeah, or come up with new ideas.
Or spark a new idea.
Yeah, it helps you to slow down and actually think about what you're doing.
Yeah, because we don't always do that.
No, we don't.
Especially when we're in a rush to solve something.
Especially when you're under pressure.
And the post also acknowledges that sometimes the hardest part is just getting started.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They talk about this thing called the zone of proximal development.
It sounds very technical.
Yeah.
But it's actually a very simple concept.
Which basically means finding that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Where a challenge is just difficult enough
to
keep you engaged, but not so overwhelming that you just want to give up.
You don't want to get discouraged.
And they suggest that one way to find that sweet spot is to start with problems you can solve fairly easily and then gradually increase the difficulty as you gain confidence.
Yeah, it's like weightlifting. You don't start with the heaviest weight right away.
Right.
You build up to it.
So it's not about constantly pushing yourself to the limit.
Right.
It's about finding that pace of learning that keeps you motivated.
Yeah, and keeps you curious.
And curious.
Exactly. And they also recommend setting time limits for yourself.
Okay.
To add an extra challenge.
Yeah.
Like revisiting problems you've solved before.
Yeah, I love that.
And trying to optimize your solutions.
Yeah. To see if you can do it better.
Exactly. This can really solidify your understanding.
Yeah.
And you can see how much progress you've made.
Like even if you already solved something.
Yeah.
There's always room for improvement.
Always.
There's always a way to maybe refine it. And make it more elegant.
Exactly, and that's how you keep that curiosity alive.
It's really cool how this deep dive has gone beyond just coding tips.
Yeah.
We've really been exploring a way of thinking, a way of approaching challenges with curiosity, and a desire to constantly learn and improve.
Yeah, it's a mindset.
And the best part is it's a skill set that applies to every aspect of our lives.
Totally.
Whether we're writing code, running a business, or just trying to figure out how to organize our kitchen drawers more efficiently.
It's about embracing that curious mindset.
Yeah.
And recognizing that there's always more to learn and explore and discover.
Absolutely. Well, to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity.
Yes.
And inspired you to approach your own challenges with a fresh perspective.
For sure.
Remember, the world is full of fascinating problems just waiting to be solved.
It is.
So embrace your inner coder.
Yes.
Keep asking questions and never stop exploring.
That's what it's all about.
Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and keep that spark of wonder alive.